In this lesson, we want to talk about having an exit plan. And an exit plan is valuable because it gives you mobility and options. Now, when my kids were starting to pick out a college career, one of them said, well, I'd really like to do this. And I said, okay, what's your plan B? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, if you apply to this school, and this school, and if you don't get all three of those, none of them, what is your plan B? Where do you plan to go from there? How do you plan to pay for all this? And so having an exit plan allows you to prepare for the unexpected. Now, recently, a local company laid off 829 people. And a majority of those people had not really been in the job market for 15 or 20 years. And they had a local person on TV who said when these people applied and started working for their current employer, they literally had just walked in, knocked on the HR door, filled out an application, were interviewed, and they had a job. He said the whole job market has changed now, where you fill out an application online, you send it in, and you sit back and wait. So when you're sitting back waiting for the email to show up or somebody to call, what's your plan B? Having an exit plan makes you less dependent and less vulnerable. A good friend of mine has a local car dealership. And before he had his own dealership, he worked for someone else. And he said it's always important to have an exit vehicle, your own personal vehicle. Because he said when you work for a dealership, they let you drive around the latest and greatest cars because they want people to see those cars. He said, but he always made sure that his car was in tip-top shape and that it was paid off so he didn't have a car payment. So when inevitably they downsized the sales staff, he could walk out to the curb and drive away in his own car and didn't have to rely on the car that was provided by the organization. So it makes you more independent and it puts you more in control of your future. And it gives you more independent action. A good exit plan would be having your house paid off and having 2-year supply of food and having a certain dollar value in the bank, let's say $25,000, so that you have flexibility. And that's what we'll talk about when we start to design in this lesson an exit plan. In this lesson, we're going to expound on having an exit plan. And a lot of times people will ask, why is having an exit plan so important? Well, first of all, it gives you mobility, it gives you stability, and it gives you options. So what do we mean by that? Well, first, mobility. The people who are the best prepared for when things happen are those that weather the storm better. A classic example would be Hurricane Katrina, when the people who had the financial means to get out of town ahead of the storm did so. And they were able to travel to another state, stay there for a while, and then come back to New Orleans, which by that time was under 8 to 10 feet of water. The people who didn't have these options ended up at the New Orleans Superdome, which I've actually driven by, and we saw that on the news where it had all of these horrendous people living in squalor because the Army wasn't ready for that kind of influx, neither was FEMA. And so those people, their exit plan was to go to the Superdome, but the Superdome didn't have an exit plan for everybody else showing up. And eventually they had to bring the Army in to basically declare martial law to keep things under control. Now, it's important that you have a mental plan, that you have mental toughness built in, because a lot of times when we have things like Hurricane Katrina or massive tornadoes like the one in Joplin, Missouri, or anything else, the mental toll that we take when we have those big significant hits is unsurmountable in some cases. As a matter of fact, sometimes people get so tied to their job and the way that they identify with their job that when their job goes away, they're unable to recover. A study showed that when generals, 4-star generals, retired, the average lifespan of a general after they retired, 4-star, was 4 years. So a general retires in 2008. By 2012 they're dead because they went from being a 4-star king of the world to pushing a shopping cart around Walmart. Nobody even cares about it anymore. So mental toughness is very, very important. Physical preparedness is also something you want to look at. In my case, it might be having 6 months worth of blood pressure pills or something along that line. Having food storage so you can weather the storm, 1 to 2 years would be great. Also, make sure you go to the gym or just walk around the block, but you get some type of exercise. 1 to 2, maybe even 3 days would be better a week, because that gives you the physical juices to keep going. And physical toughness and mental toughness are closely linked. The other is emotional. And a lot of times when major traumatic events happen in someone's life, they either rise to the occasion or it completely overwhelms them. And here's an example. A colleague of mine, she got right to the edge of her dissertation. This is when she presented it and defended it to her dissertation committee. And they came back and they said, we just don't believe your data, and so therefore we're not going to sign off on your dissertation. And when she told me this, we were at a restaurant, and it was the only time I'd ever seen anybody physically melt down and then mentally melt down as well, because it was so overwhelming. She'd worked so hard, and basically her committee was telling her, well, thanks, but no thanks, and don't come back again. So what we're going to look at right now are a couple of videos. Now, the first one I have to warn you is a little crude. It's John Goodman and Mark Wahlberg in the movie The Gambler, where Goodman is talking to him about his fortress of solitude. So if you don't like coarse four-letter words, you might want to skip past this. And the other one is a terrific movie with George Clooney called Up in the Air, where his job basically is to go around to companies that hire his company and fire people, lay them off. And it's a good scene. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about things such as having a financial exit plan. So let's go into that right now.
I've seen you be $500,000 up.
I've been up $2.5 million.
What do you got on you?
Nothing.
What'd you put away?
Nothing.
You get up $2.5 million. Any asshole in the world knows what to do. You get a house with a 25-year roof, an indestructible Jap economy shitbox. You put the rest into the system at 3 to 5% to pay your taxes, and that's your base. Get me? That's your fortress of fucking solitude. That puts you for the rest of your life at a level of fuck you. Somebody wants you to do something? Fuck you. Boss pisses you off? Fuck you. Own your house. Have a couple bucks in the bank. Don't drink. That's all I have to say to anybody at any social level. Did your grandfather take risks?
Yes.
I guarantee he did it from a position of fuck you.
Miss Barnes, thank you for joining us.
I'm here to be fired, right?
Well, we're here to talk about your future.
You don't have to sugarcoat it. I get the drill. What are they offering?
Inside the packet, you'll find a clearly worked out severance package.
Give me the bullet points.
It's actually pretty good. 3 months pay, 6 months medical, and a full year of placement services through our company, CTC.
Placement services. That's generous.
Commonly, it takes 1 month of searching for every $10,000 you expect to earn in salary.
So I could be looking for a while.
Not necessarily.
Don't even sweat it. I'm pretty confident about my plans.
Really?
Yeah. There's this beautiful bridge by my house. I'm gonna go jump off it.
Now, in those two movies, what we saw was financial preparedness. Some people were financially prepared, some were economically prepared. Mark Wahlberg he had emotional and physical toughness, but nothing else was really prepared in his life. Now, having a financial plan is key, like John Goodman said in the movie. Have your house paid off, have a 25-year roof on your home. Get yourself a vehicle that you can economically afford. Have a house that you can, afford. Now, when I bought my house, the realtor looked at, my credit rating, my wife's credit rating, and they said, wow, you could get a house twice as big as the one you're looking at. And my wife and I had a conversation. We agreed that we needed a home that we could afford if we only had one salary. And with the ups and downs of the world, it's really played to our advantage. Now, because you have an exit plan, you are less dependent or vulnerable to the world around you. Also, it makes you much more independent because you have fluid action. You can go where you want to go, do what you want to do. And it puts you in control of your future. There's a great line by John Kennedy, President Kennedy, when they asked him, "What did you, think when you were a child growing up during the Great Depression?" And his comment was, "The only thing that I knew about the Great Depression is what I read in the newspaper." And he made that statement because his family was very wealthy, so all of the ups and downs of the Depression had no impact on his life because they were financially solvent. And having an exit plan gives you independent actions that others will lack. And so as we go further into our courses, we'll talk about that. But think about, what is your exit plan? How do you, if your world collapsed around you today and you lost your job and you were never ever going to work in your industry again, how would you survive? What would you do? What is your mental plan, your physical plan, your emotional plan, and most importantly, your financial plan? And we'll be right back.